Oh hey, in case you were wondering, I've never felt sexier before. I know this isn't my best look right now, barely slept last night, but we are gonna power through. These take a lot of work, so you gotta do it how you gotta do it. And I don't really have a whole lot of shame, so we're just gonna ride this wave right now. Because it's the early morning, I will not be drinking alcohol right now. This is literally just a plain sparkling water from Trader Joe's. Boring as hell. I'm boring today with gold things under my eyes trying to deflate any kind of puffiness from the lack of sleep. My shirt is, oh, this is an alcohol brand that I sell at work. It's called Doc Swinson's. It's this really phenomenal bourbon that we carry, and whiskey and rye. So if you're a fan and you ever see that in stores, it's sourced from MGP and everything like that. If you're not like a bourbon lover or whatever, you're probably not going to give a shit about what that means, but it's that good if you know what I mean. Yeah, go Doc Swinson's. Go Doc Swinson's t-shirt. Okay, so let's just go ahead and get into this. I think this is episode 12 that I'm recording right now. I couldn't tell you, but I'm pretty sure it's 12. So welcome. I'm so glad that you're here today. I would apologize for my appearance, but like I said, I don't really have shame. So like, if you're just in this for looking at somebody attractive, like there's plenty of other beautiful YouTube episodes out there of different prettier people reading scary stories. So go to them. Anyway, today what we're gonna do is, I'm back on that what's your best true spooky story thread on Reddit. So what I wanna do is I'm gonna read a couple of these stories that have been sent in. I'm gonna aim for 5. I'll see what kind of time period. You know what I mean, right? We'll see how much time that takes. Is that the right way to explain it? We'll see how much time it takes and we'll go from there. So the goal is 5 stories here. So again, this is written in under a thread. So some of these don't have, it looks like most of these are comments of the question on the thread. So they won't have titles. And some of them are accounts that are deleted. But the story's still on here, which is cool. I didn't know that that was the thing. Also, if I'm explaining that wrong again, I've explained this in another episode. I'm not like super privy to Reddit. I just am like assuming, but you know what they say when you assume? I don't need to say it. Once again, this is under the thread, what's your best true spooky story? And the first one that's on here, and it has a bunch of good, like, there's this part of Reddit that has like an up arrow. So the more people click on that up arrow, the higher it goes on the thread or on the comments or whatever. So that means a lot of people like it. So more people get to see it, the ones that are up top. So this one was the first one on the comments under this thread. So once again, unfortunately, the username, it says deleted. So it must be an account that doesn't exist anymore, but let's go ahead and dive into this story. So this one is the scariest thing I've had happen while camping. So I live in Eastern Oregon and my mom lives in Western Oregon. I went to visit her for the summer and she's very outdoorsy. So we decided to take the 1-hour drive from her city to the coast. We end up at this free campsite at the top of the hill. Huge foothills off the coast of mountains, about 25-minute drive from the top where the campsite is to the bottom where the main road was. And we were the only campers there. We relaxed for the rest of the day, made food, etc. A truck full of men drive up the hill and talk with my mom. I already hate this. I'm not trying to assume here, but that, like, the red flag to the story. I don't know what about, wasn't suspicious at the time, and they leave us. Fast forward to the middle of the night. I wake up to my mom sitting straight up in the tent. I wake easily, so I heard her gasp, and it woke me. As soon as she saw I was awake, she put her hand over my mouth because I was starting to ask her what's wrong. It was dead silent. And all of a sudden, you hear footsteps right beside the tent. The little flap that covers the zipper was even moving. Thankfully, my mom has quick wits and said very loudly, "Kenny, grab the gun." Kenny is my dad, although that doesn't matter, and mind you, he was not there. Just us girls, like I previously said. They left. No harm was done. Thank the Lord for my mom. I don't camp. For me, it's not the outdoors. I actually really like the outdoors. For me, it's the bugs. I am horrified of bugs. Yeah, so I would not be camping in like a tent. In a cabin, dope. In an RV, yes, that sounds great. But there's always these crazy stories about like national parks. I feel like and supposedly they're true. Like there's a lot of crazy shit that happens in national parks, and I feel like it's become more prevalent over the last couple of years. Like I've heard a lot more stories about scary stuff happening in national parks and people getting lost, and you know, bad stuff happening the deeper that you go into the woods and all of that stuff. So if I were to do, I really want to do like the big national parks and stuff like that at some point, more on the West Coast since I'm on the East Coast. But I think I would want to do it like RV style, not camping style, like in a tent outside. Once again, bugs, bleh. Anyway, so maybe I'll do an episode on some true scary, you know, national park stories. I'm sure I could find a bunch, because like it's mostly been TikToks that I've seen, because like not everything, but most of the stuff I like on TikTok is like horror stuff. So I always get a ton of like stuff on my FYP that's horror stories about different stuff. And there was like really a solid period of time where it was horror stories about national parks. So maybe I'll do an episode to that. We'll see. Okay, so the next one that commented on this thread under true scary stories was written in by Just Another Gamer. I have been a caver in Florida, oh hey, fellow Floridian, for about 13 years, since I was about 6. And I've been to a lot of caves, never been afraid before this one to go in. When I was about 7 or 8 years old, I started having this reoccurring dream. I would have it at least twice a year, always the same, even though I would realize I was dreaming after the first few iterations. I would fall asleep and dream of being in a cave and going into this little hole in the bottom. Inside, I would see a 10 to 15 foot long corridor about 2 to 4 feet high. At the end, it would always turn left, and I always saw a bent road stop sign at the end, like someone ripped off the top 2 feet and tossed it in. But I would always follow the corridor. You know what's really weird? I've had a nightmare that has always stuck with me, and it only happened to me once, but there was a stop sign involved. I wonder if that means something. I'll like Google it. I would turn around and walk past the sign despite being scared, despite many times knowing what was there, and the corridor would start descending, quickly opening into a large vertical chamber with the path leading down and corkscrew. Everything became blurry at this point, but it was always the same. I saw trash scattered on the walls. I saw the pit leading down to a curved floor. I saw things undefined. Animals or people or something else at the bottom. Ooh, that fucking gives me chills. Like undefined. Yeah, that is terrifying. And I saw my family, each with one of the things being tortured and killed. Every time. And I could never do anything. After that, I would be stuck for a few seconds. And I saw everything turn and look at me, and I would wake up. Whew, that would be horrifying. Oh my God. Not like a normal dream where you just drift into consciousness, or a nightmare where you bolt up in fear, but like something pushed me out, like I wasn't supposed to be there. So I have the dream multiple times a year until I turned 15. I did tell a friend about the dream before what happens next. My father decided to take us to some caves we had never been before. One of which was Dog Drop. It was likely named so because someone either threw their pet in there or a coyote fell in, and their body was later discovered. It's fucked up. But did we have to talk about dogs dying? Damn it. It's fine. Okay. Dog Drop had a roughly 30-foot rappel straight down to enter. I went down with my brother while my father waited up at the top. There was a hole in the ground. I started to feel uneasy though, and I didn't know why. So I followed my brother into the hole. I felt worse as I moved down. And when I looked up, I saw the same corridor, the same turn, the same wall, the same bottles at the corner. And I instantly was hit with this overwhelming sense of nausea and fear and being watched, and everything was screaming at me to leave. I froze and must have made some noise because my brother turned around and asked me what was wrong. I managed to say I wanted to leave now and climbed out as quickly as I could, followed immediately by my brother. We packed up and left. Never have gone back and never will. Haven't told anyone what actually happened, just said I wasn't feeling well, and they forgot pretty quickly. The thing that really makes it creepy for me is I've never had the dream again. Year after year, I would have it consistently, but it just stopped after that. But I still remember it all, and I still feel afraid. Almost an external fear when I think of it. Okay, I talked about in, I think the last episode or maybe the episode prior to that, I've had dreams that have come true before, and that stuff really freaks me out. I hate dreaming. I can't think of like a good dream I've had. Like, well, I can think of a few. We won't go there. But you know what I mean? Like, I feel like when I dream, it's mostly, if I remember it, it's mostly nightmares. I also have insomnia, and I have always been a horrible sleeper, so that's like a personal thing. So Dream stuff really freaks me out, especially when like some dream stuff has come true. I have a few examples of that. One of them I mentioned in the last episode. So if you want to hear it and you haven't listened to the episode yet, definitely check that out. Okay, this next one was written in by Tidy Whitey's 37. I lived in an old apartment in 2002. The place was built in 1990, so it was just over 100 years old when I moved in. The living room and the kitchen were fine, but the bathroom and bedroom were unnerving. Like, I just felt like I was being watched, especially in the bedroom if the closet door was open. That's scary. Okay. Those unnerving feelings just became moderately uncomfortable as I settled in. I felt safe in the bedroom, but only if the door was locked. One night, I was dead asleep when there was a loud bang on my bedroom door. When I got up the courage to get out of bed, I checked the apartment and all the windows were closed and locked from the inside. The door still had the chain secured. No one was in there. I mentioned the closet in my bedroom. I never liked going in there, and I never liked if the door was open. For some reason, in my head, I would hear gasping noises. So for that reason, the closet door stayed closed. What the fuck? How do you live somewhere where you hear something like that? Like, I'm not judging, but holy cow, that would make me move, 100%. Okay, I digress. A month or more after I was woken to the bang on my door, I was dead asleep. But something woke me up, and it was a pressure on me like being held down. It was pitch black in my room. I couldn't see anything, but I knew something was standing over me. When I could finally turn on my bedside lamp, no one was there. After then, I couldn't sleep in the dark. I had to sleep with a lamp on. That incident scared the life out of me. And after that, the unnerving feeling of being watched intensified. Friends would come over and comment about being uncomfortable in the bathroom, like being watched. It became so uncomfortable for me that when I had the chance to move to another unit, I jumped at it. I packed up and got out. We are so proud of you, OP. We are so proud. That was loud, sorry. After me, several people rented the apartment, and they would move out within months. I became friendly with the building manager, and I told him that I felt the place was haunted, and he just kind of laughed it off. Years after, they were renovating the place. The building manager was doing some painting in there. The building owner was there too. I went and checked out the apartment, and it looked nicer. It didn't feel as creepy. I got to talking with the building owner, and through the course of conversation, he just throws it out there that a former tenant committed suicide in the closet by hanging themselves. Oh, that's so sad. He also mentioned that the original designer of the building lived in that apartment and died in there. I wasn't mad when I heard it, but felt validated that what I experienced was real. Ugh, sorry guys. I wish I could give all the trigger warnings in the world for these stories, but I can't, so just proceed with caution when listening to these episodes. It kind of sounds like, if you don't know what sleep paralysis is, there's an entire documentary dedicated to it, and it's called The Nightmare, and a lot of people experience it. There's a pretty high statistic with it. It says it in the film, but I can't remember what the actual number is. I've experienced sleep paralysis. I've experienced it 2 ways, and it's only happened to me twice. The first time it wasn't scary. It's weird. I remember I felt like I had woken up and I wasn't actually awake, and I could not move. Like, I was completely paralyzed, hence the paralysis and sleep paralysis, and I was asleep. Like, you know, not that genius of a concept, but I remember feeling very at peace, even though I couldn't move. I also felt like I couldn't really breathe, but I just kept thinking, like, oh, if this is the way I go, this is a really peaceful way to go, which is so dark, sorry, but it's true that it wasn't scary. I didn't feel threatened. It was interesting. And of course I woke up and everything was fine. Now, more recently, this was wild. I had sleep paralysis where I could feel so much, but it felt like everything was black. So obviously I was asleep, could not move my body. Like, how I felt was like, I remember feeling like someone was holding my arms down, and I was like, oh, that's weird, like thinking that. And then I felt someone starting to choke me like this. And I remember feeling like it was so real. And I went to go turn to my husband, Cameron, and tried to scream, Cameron, help me. And I couldn't scream. Like, I was screaming so hard and no words came out. And I was like, what the hell's going on? And I just kept trying to scream and kept trying to scream and kept trying to scream, even though I was being choked, couldn't breathe, whatever. And sure enough, I woke up like, boom. And I don't know if I had like this weird thing where I was having trouble breathing or something like that, and my brain was like playing a trick on me. Or if the sleep paralysis caused that, I don't know. That was weird. It's the only time it's ever happened to me. But when I woke up, I was like pretty freaked out, but was so grateful because I was like, oh, that was a dream. I just couldn't breathe in the dream, but Obviously I'm fine. So, but sleep paralysis is fucking wild. Like some people see shit, like people, like there's a very famous thing that a lot of people have said that they've seen. It's like called the Hat Man. I've never seen anyone or seen anything. I've just felt the paralysis and felt like the presence of something like holding me down kind of thing. So wild. If you have any sleep paralysis stories, I would love for you to comment below and share. So it's a crazy concept, but yeah, anyway, I digress. So let's try to squeeze in, I'm gonna try to squeeze in 2 more stories here and then we'll wrap up for this episode until tomorrow. Okay, this one was written in by Dick Rubnuts. Dick Rubnuts? I love these names, they crack me up. Okay. I'm also like a 12-year-old boy in terms of humor. When my grandparents bought their house for a family of 10, my grandpa found a fake wall upstairs. He tore it down to make more room for the family. Behind the wall were children's clothes and play toys, almost like they walked off the room in a hurry. My mom told me stories of sitting in her room and something circling the walls around her, surrounding like wallpaper being torn. When she moved out, my aunt moved into the same room. She would wake up with pictures she hung up laying on her chest in the morning. My cousins also have stories of hearing footsteps coming up and down the stairs and stopping outside their door in the middle of the night. I still don't go upstairs at their house because it's always cold and I get weird vibes up there. Even in my adult life, I have scary dreams that take place in their upstairs. That is freaky. I've never really had a real paranormal experience before. There's been like 1 or 2 things that I've been like, that could have been that, but it might have also been like a trick of my eyes or whatever. So the closest thing I ever have is I have this really weird story. It's not like that interesting, but whatever. It's like, okay, so I was in my house now, which it's like, it's a new build. I think, I don't even know when it was built. It's like, it's a townhouse that we bought back in 2015. So it was so weird. One time I was walking down my stairs and I swear to God, I distinctly remember hearing in my ear, I was completely home alone. And I remember distinctly hearing in my ear someone just say, hey, just like that, like not scary, not loud, not like angry, just a very, it was like if I had a friend there or my husband was there or something, and if they would have just been like, hey, and it stopped me dead in my tracks because it was so clear and I have no idea where it came from. The only logical thing I have that it could be is that I live in a townhouse, like I said, so the walls like were connected to everybody else's walls basically. So it could have just been sounded super clear from someone right next door, but I've never heard something that clear in my entire life and I could not find a source for the sound. So that one was weird. Okay, so I'm gonna read one more story for this episode, and this was written in by Lucky C. Nick. While at uni, I love being able to tell when people are from different countries writing in, because like in the US we call it college, or yeah, typically we'll be like, while I was at college, or school, but I think in Europe as well as in Australia and New Zealand, they call it uni, which stands for university. While at uni, my friends and I ran out of booze. Hardly any shops were open because it was so late. So the only option was to walk the mile or so to the nearest 24-hour supermarket. Between the supermarket and the dorms we lived in was just a row of suburban houses which all looked the same. As we were walking down one road, we passed a field with a large campfire and some people riding horses around it. There were people playing musical instruments and general sounds of a good time going on. The horses and the fire and the lanterns which were dotted about gave it a very old-fashioned feel. Maybe 5 minutes after passing the field, now walking past the houses again, one of my friends commented on how weird and out of place that gathering of people had just been. My other friend and I had been thinking the exact same thing. So, curious, we turned around and walked back to find out exactly what was going on. There was nothing there. Not just no people or horses. There was no field, just more and more houses. Even though we were absolutely certain we were on the right road and we'd simply turned around. We walked up and down the neighboring roads as well. We found nothing. We weren't drunk, though we'd had some drinks. And so I've got absolutely no idea what happened that night. That is wild. I've never experienced anything like that. Oh, that definitely sounds not right. Sounds out of place. And the fact that all of you experienced it, it wasn't just one person, like, oh, that is freaky. That also could be kind of glitch in the matrix-y. ish. It's giving me that vibe. Like maybe they crossed into a parallel universe and saw something like from way back in the day that they weren't supposed to see. So who knows? All right, well, that's where I'm gonna wrap this up today. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of Buzztober under the Bubbly Thoughts podcast. If you guys are liking this, please like and subscribe, and as well as click that notification bell so that way you can get alerts anytime I upload a new video. And feel free to comment stuff below if you have any cool stories that you want to share, or if you have a favorite scary story that is written into Reddit or No Sleep Reddit or what have you. I would love to read them, so don't be afraid to pass those along my way. Until tomorrow, cheers, stay spooky, and stay buzzed.